home bakers, it's Jack here at bakewithjack.co.uk, bringing you your weekly bread baking tip every single Thursday. And this week, how do you make your own sourdough starter? Spoiler alert, it's so easy. Let's go. Hey home bakers, welcome back. It's Jack here. Listen, if you're new, welcome. I share a little bit of bread making wisdom with you every single week. So please consider subscribing if that's your cup of tea. Without further ado, let's talk about sourdough starter. Now listen, a couple of weeks ago I did a video about what is sourdough bread, and I spoke a lot about a sourdough starter and what it is. Basically, instead of using baker's yeast in a normal bread to make a sourdough, you use this instead, and it's basically a wonderful concoction of flour and water that you give a little bit of love and attention that makes bubbles, and the bubbles make your bread rise, and the starter makes your bread so delicious. But how do you make it in the first place? That's an excellent question. I'm glad you asked. Now, people who have a sourdough starter keep their sourdough starter going and going and going forever. So theoretically, you've only really got to make one once. Now, I was doing a demonstration the other day at Albury Vineyard, which is a lovely local vineyard. It's a beautiful place. The sun was shining. It's absolutely wonderful. Did a sourdough bread making demonstration. Now, I wanted to give everyone a little piece of sourdough starter for them to take home and make a loaf of bread with. Something else I wanted to do was to give people instructions in case anything went wrong with their starter or they accidentally used it all up in one loaf of bread. And I've done that before, used all my starter, gone to the fridge to make another loaf of bread, and the starters are all gone and I got nothing to work with. So I wanted to provide a nice set of instructions for them to make their own sourdough starter. And so therefore I had to make one so then I could write the recipe as I was making it. And here is what I did, okay? Last week, it's hot, okay? It's been very, very hot in the UK, which is absolutely bonkers. But it does happen, and it was really, really warm. I'm talking like 23 degrees. Scorchio! Warmth helps us out because it keeps our starter nice and warm, and in the warm, the starter will ferment better. So listen, this is what I did. I took 25 grams of wholemeal rye flour, organic wholemeal rye flour, and I popped it in a peanut butter jar, like this. I also took 25 grams of warm water at 35 degrees C and popped it in the peanut butter jar, like this. I mean the same one, by the way. And then I mixed it up, screwed the lid on, and left it on the kitchen side at room temperature till tomorrow. The following day, I woke up and I did the same thing. I added 25 grams of warm water and 25 grams of wholemeal rye flour to this very pot, and then I mixed it all together. It was so warm that week that on day 3 I woke up and it was already foaming a little bit. It was already going for it. A little bit bubbles happening there. I smelt it, and a little bit of sourness started to overtake that grassy smell of the rye flour. So I fed it again on that day, 25 grams of wholemeal rye flour and 25 grams of nice warm water at 35 degrees C, mixed it up, left it on the kitchen side. So that's 3 goes now, 3 feeds, 3 days. I left it on the side again, and on day 4 there was a little bit more action happening. More bubbles, more of that sour fragrance, a little bit of volume increase, and that's important. So what I did is, I didn't need it quite yet, so I just gave it another feed because I might as well get it well excited. 25 grams of wholemeal rye flour and 25 grams of water at 35 degrees C. The following day it was properly foaming up, and it was ready to make bread with. And in fact, I used it that day to make bread for the following day for my demonstration. I used it and I made bread with it for us to eat on the day that I'd made from the starter that I deliberately created for the demonstration, for the purpose of the demonstration. All starters got a long story from them. Sometimes you can buy them from San Francisco in a dry packet and add water to it or whatnot, but at the end of the day, your sourdough starter is unique to you, and that's the beautiful thing about it. You made it. Wherever you are in the world, you make your starter out of the flour you can get hold of, and you make it out of the water that you get hold of. That's it. That's the only two things. You can use tap water. Some people use bottled water if they're worried. I just used tap water. It was warm, and in 3 days it was bubbling up already. I couldn't quite believe it, but that's how fast it happened. So I thought it'd be cool that at my demonstration I would give everyone a little piece of my starter, and I put them in little jars like this, and it was deliberately born for them that week. That's what I thought would be so cool, because all starters got a big long story. Sometimes they can't remember where they came from. Sometimes they got passed down the generations for hundreds of years or whatever. Sometimes they come from Poland or can't quite remember or whatever. But I wanted to make one that was born specifically for them on that day. You know the origins. It come from me, wholemeal rye flour and water in my house, sitting on the side, natural fermentation, wild yeasts making their bread rise over and over and over. And in years to come, they can say, hey man, I got this starter from that little chap called Jack. That famous boy on the TV, that guy with all the books in the shops, that guy with his face on the side of a loaf tin that I went out and purchased for my bread. That guy that brings the joy of homemade bread to everyone. 25, 30 years ago, I met that guy and he gave me this starter that was born just for me on that day. And I've been using it ever since. I thought that would be awesome. So hey, listen, thank you very much for hanging out with me every single week for a bread making tip. And make your own sourdough starter. It's wicked. Make it wherever you are in the world, with your water, with your flour. Just make it and show it a bit of love, and it'll be wonderful. See you next week.